Who doesn't have moments from your past that make you cringe? Who hasn't said, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I wore that. I can't believe I thought that. I can't believe I did that. You ate dirt. You wanted to be a Ghostbuster. You shoplifted gum. You tried to be a white breakdancer. Plenty of liberals also want to abuse history to control the present. And last month, a scholar named James Sweet caught hell for calling them out for doing just that. He criticized a phenomenon known as presentism, which means judging everyone in the past by the standards of the present. It's the belief that people who lived 100 or 500 or 1,000 years ago really should have known better.
All right, buckle up, because what we're about to discuss isn't just another opinion. It's a straight shot at the heart of the woke movement. Bill Maher, the guy who spent years waving the progressive flag, has basically looked at his old allies and said, "You've lost it." And he's not whispering, he's shouting it loud. If you've been paying attention, you've probably noticed Maher's tone shifting over the past few years. This is a man who used to support every progressive cause, celebrate every liberal win, and happily join cultural pylons. But now, it seems he's realized the mob sometimes looks a lot like what they claim to fight, and he's saying it's time to slow down. Honestly, who hasn't had awkward moments in the past? The fashion mistakes, the weird childhood dreams. Yes, Mom, I really thought I'd be a Ghostbuster. Maybe even little rebellious acts like stealing gum. We've all done silly things. That's just being human. So when Maher points out the madness of judging people from hundreds of years ago by today's standards, what scholars call presentism, he isn't excusing bad behavior. He's defending context. Expecting someone from 1525 to have the same worldview as you with your iPhone, Wikipedia, and TikTok morals is absurd. The problem is, the woke mob doesn't value context. They demand moral absolutes. They apply 2025 rules to people living in a time when soap was a luxury. And it's not just history. They're doing it to everyone today.
The problem is that nobody ever gets canceled for being too woke. So you can say the craziest thing, like men can have babies, and then nobody will, even though people are thinking, well, that's kind of nuts, nobody will say it. They'll just fall in line. Yeah, exactly. That's what I've always thought, men can have babies. Sure. I saw a dude who was glowing yesterday. And that's the problem.
And it's totally insane.
Cowardice.
Yes, it is. It's moral cowardice, isn't it? But
it's intellectual cowardice.
But it also comes from a place of reality, that fear, because they see people around them literally getting cancelled, getting shamed and abused and hounded out of jobs. And they think, I don't want it to.
Maher has been driving this point home. No one ever gets canceled for being too woke. You can say things so strange they sound like rejected Monty Python sketches. Men can have babies. And instead of pushing back, people just agree because they're scared. They've seen what happens when someone even slightly challenges the rules. Online mobs, media attacks, people losing jobs overnight. That's not free speech. That's moral cowardice. And worse, it's intellectual cowardice. Avoiding questions because you're scared of the answers. Maher notices it everywhere. Professors fired for quoting offensive language in lessons about offensive language. Comedians editing their jokes to avoid backlash. Entire TV shows rewritten to please the most sensitive corners of Twitter. We're talking about a culture where nuance isn't just ignored, it's hunted and eliminated.
I can't count the number of stories I've either covered on the show or just read about of professors at colleges, which are supposed to be the bastions of free speech, who said something that was just an opinion.
One guy,
that was
one
different.
Professor in America, he gave a lecture for 25 years about the use of offensive language. And then some students complained about his use of offensive language in the lecture about offensive language. And he had to lose his job. And at that point, I just felt that was peak woke insanity. He literally was lecturing about offensive language and using offensive language to illustrate it.
They have no sense of nuance. They have no sense of context. They just know certain buzzwords or certain concepts are out of limits, off limits, and since social media is just a bunch of mean girls.
And then there's social media. Oh boy, if the founding fathers had Twitter, half of them would have been canceled before the ink on the Constitution dried. What used to be a digital public square is now a gladiator arena where people don't want to discuss ideas. They just want to humiliate others. It's so toxic that it's spilling into real life. People refusing to date someone just because of their political views. Imagine that you're on a date, everything is going well, you're laughing, connecting, and then they ask, "So, did you vote Republican?" And boom, check, please. That's not politics anymore. It's tribalism. Maher points this out because he remembers what liberalism used to mean, lifting people up, accepting different opinions, and fighting for equality without destroying everything else. In his view, the woke movement has twisted this into something unrecognizable. Now, it's not about improving the country. It's about catching mistakes, shaming people, and acting morally superior while doing nothing to solve real problems.
This is what's so obnoxious about that side of things, that just idea of we're not really lifting people up. Liberalism is about lifting people up, not catching people.
And tolerating people.
It's not about white self-loathing.
Yes.
It's about, yes, we have a horrible history in this country. Let's make it right in the ways that make sense. It's not just about catching people.
So I think that really is kind of the heart of the country. Old school liberalism gets a moment to celebrate. You've won on a lot of issues, but here's another strange habit of liberals. They don't want to admit progress because they feel that acknowledging it might make them seem less of a true progressive. It's right in the name, progress. And that's what you're supposed to support. And then there's the Trump factor. This is where Maher really parts ways with the left. The constant attempts to take Trump down through legal battles. Maher said it straight. This would backfire. Taking him to court over things like the Stormy Daniels case might have pleased MSNBC viewers, but for the rest of the country, it made him look like a political martyr. On Donald Trump.
So I think that really is kind of the center of the country. Old school liberalism, take a victory lap. You kind of won on a lot of things, but it's another funny pathology of liberals. They don't want to acknowledge progress because they somehow feel like if I acknowledge progress, well, then I'm not as authentic a progressive. It's right in your name. And that's what you're selling, progress.
And he was right. The nonstop coverage made Trump the most talked about man in America. Instead of ending his career, it actually boosted it. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. You only get a bigger blaze. Maher also enjoys pointing out Hollywood's absurdities. He mentions how movies from just 15 years ago, made by the most liberal, woke-approved directors and actors, would now be criticized for not having enough diversity. Not because the story needed it, but because the checklist demands it. This isn't about real representation anymore. It's about ticking boxes and showing off virtue. In the process, creativity suffers. Characters feel inserted to make a political statement rather than serve the story. Entire scenes exist just to say, look how progressive we are, instead of entertaining. That's not art. It's propaganda dressed up nicely.
On Donald Trump, all this legal mayhem that's flying at him, does it actually empower him? Does it have the opposite effect, perhaps, to what the Democrats would hope it would have?
Yes, well, that was the end of the show tonight when I was talking about the Stormy Daniels issue. I mean, it's always going to strike people as sex. When it's about getting a guy for sex, I don't think they should have discouraged. I guess Alvin Bragg can do what he wants. But if I was the president or somebody, I would have discouraged him quietly. Let's not do this one, because we're gonna see Trump hauled into court as we did, and that's going to be the big story, and it's going to be just high fives on MSNBC. And look, I was thrilled.
And it doesn't stop at pop culture. The woke movement has even targeted America's most famous historical figures: Lincoln, Washington, Jefferson, and Teddy Roosevelt. Statues toppled, names erased, legacies reduced to a single mistake. They've decided a man's entire life can be judged by his worst act, even if he helped build the very freedoms people enjoy today. It's historical arrogance at its finest, judging people in 1776 as if they were posting on an iPhone in 2025.
I'm constantly amazed when I rewatch movies from only a decade or so ago, and they were made in a way that today would get you burned at the Twitter stake. It's complicated. From 2009, to name just one of many I could choose, was made by a who's who of the most blue ribbon certified Hollywood liberals, woke approved and Democratic Party contributing, from the stars to the producers to the director. But it apparently occurred to none of them to have any kind of minority in the cast. You would need a divining rod to find a person of color within 500 feet of this movie set. But if they made it today, they'd do better.
Maher's message is clear. You can recognize the horrors of the past without erasing the people who shaped today. You can fight for equality without destroying free speech. You can push for change without turning the country into a culture war. But right now, the woke movement isn't seeking balance. They demand purity tests, strict ideological conformity, and full control of the cultural story. And Maher isn't going along. His move toward the center isn't about becoming conservative. It's about saying enough. This has gone too far. The bottom line, if fear, moral arrogance, and historical forgetfulness take over, you don't just lose your sense of humor or culture. You lose the foundation that made progress possible. And if that happens, it doesn't matter which political team you support. We all lose. So maybe the real question isn't why Bill Maher is speaking out now. The real question